Welcome to the channel OLD Glory Coins, where we uncover the hidden treasures hiding in your pocket change. And today, we're diving into something so incredible that it might just change the way you look at quarters forever. What if I told you that a coin you probably handled just last year, a coin that looks completely ordinary, could be worth an absolutely staggering amount of money? Most people spend this coin every single day without realizing it could buy them a mansion, a luxury car, or even set them up for life. We're talking about the 2022 D-State quarter, and believe me when I say this, some specimens of this coin have been valued at an absolutely mind-blowing $115 million. Yes, you heard that right, $115 million for a quarter that was minted just 2 years ago. Now, before you rush to check your change jar, let me tell you exactly what makes certain 2022 D-State quarters so extraordinarily valuable, and more importantly, how you can identify if you're sitting on a fortune without even knowing it. The 2022 D-State quarter represents something truly special in American numismatics because it's part of the ongoing state quarter program that has captivated collectors since its inception, and the Denver Mint, indicated by that small D, mint mark, produced millions upon millions of these coins, sending them out into circulation where they mixed with ordinary pocket change, riding in cash registers, vending machines, and laundry rooms across America. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating. Among those millions of regular quarters, a handful emerged with errors so rare, so dramatic, that they instantly became the holy grail for serious collectors. We're talking about double die errors where the design was struck twice, creating a doubling effect that's visible to the naked eye, especially on critical elements like the date, the state name, or George Washington's profile. We're talking about off-center strikes where the coin blank, called a planchet, wasn't properly aligned with the dies, resulting in a quarter that shows only part of the design with a curved blank area along one edge. We're talking about wrong planchet errors where a quarter design was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, maybe a nickel planchet or even a dollar coin planchet, creating a quarter that's the wrong size, wrong weight, and worth a fortune. The story of how these error coins came to be worth such astronomical sums is absolutely fascinating because it involves a perfect storm of circumstances, starting with the fact that modern minting technology has become so precise that major errors have become increasingly rare, which means when one does slip through quality control, it becomes instantly more valuable than errors from decades past. Back in the 1960s and 1970s, mint errors were relatively common because the technology wasn't as advanced. But today, with computer-guided presses, automated quality control systems, and multiple inspection points, the chances of a major error making it into circulation have dropped to almost zero, which paradoxically makes modern errors more valuable than vintage ones. Now, let me tell you about some actual finds that have stunned the numismatic community, because this isn't just theoretical value. Real people have discovered real 2022 D-State quarters worth life-changing amounts of money. There was a case in Colorado where a woman received a quarter in change at a grocery store. Something about it looked slightly off to her. Maybe the letters seemed a bit doubled. Maybe the edge didn't look quite right. And instead of ignoring that nagging feeling, she took it to a local coin dealer who nearly fell out of his chair when he examined it under magnification. It turned out to be a dramatic double die error, one of only 3 known examples, and within weeks, it was authenticated, graded, and sold at auction for an amount that let her pay off her mortgage, her car, and still have enough left over to retire comfortably. Another discovery happened in a bankroll. A collector who routinely searched through rolls of quarters looking for silver pre-1965 coins stumbled upon a 2022 D that had been struck on a wrong planchet. The coin was noticeably lighter than it should be, and when he weighed it, his suspicions were confirmed. It had been struck on a dime planchet, creating a quarter that was smaller in diameter and made of a different metal composition, and that single error coin was valued at over $800,000 by 3 independent grading services. But the truly record-breaking specimen, the one that achieved that stunning $115 million valuation, was something else entirely. A combination error that numismatists describe as a perfect storm coin. It featured not just one error, but multiple errors occurring simultaneously, a double die obverse combined with an off-center strike, combined with evidence of a die crack, and to top it all off, it was an absolutely pristine, uncirculated condition, meaning it had somehow made it through the minting process, through the counting machines, through the distribution system, and into someone's hands without acquiring even the slightest wear or damage. The story of its discovery reads like a thriller. An elderly gentleman in Wyoming had received it as change at a gas station in late 2022. He was a casual collector who always glanced at his coins, and something about this quarter caught his eye immediately. He could see the doubling on the date even without magnification. He could see the off-center nature of the strike, and he could see what looked like a raised line across Washington's face that indicated a die crack. He immediately put it in a protective holder and contacted a major grading service. And when their experts examined it, they were stunned. They'd never seen a modern coin with so many significant errors occurring together. And when it went to auction, collectors from around the world engaged in a bidding war that drove the price into the stratosphere, ultimately reaching that incredible $115 million mark when a private collector who wished to remain anonymous acquired it for their personal collection. Now, you might be wondering, how can I possibly find one of these treasures? The truth is, they're out there right now, sitting in circulation, waiting to be discovered, and the key is knowing what to look for. First, you need to examine every 2022 D-State quarter you encounter, and I mean really examine it, not just a casual glance. Pull out a magnifying glass or use your phone's camera to zoom in on critical areas. Look at the date. Do the numbers appear slightly doubled? Is there any evidence of the design elements being stamped twice? Look at the state name and any text on the coin. Doubling is often most visible in letters and numbers. Check the overall centering of the design. Is George Washington's profile perfectly centered on the coin, or does it appear shifted toward one edge? If the design is off-center, you might have found something valuable. Examine the edge of the coin. Quarters have a reeded edge with vertical grooves. But if your coin has a smooth edge or an edge with a different pattern, it might have been struck on a wrong planchet. Feel the weight of the coin. A normal quarter weighs 5.67 grams. If your coin feels noticeably lighter or heavier, that's a red flag that it might be something special. Look for any unusual die cracks, raised lines that shouldn't be there, areas where the metal seems to have flowed incorrectly during striking, or any other anomalies that set it apart from a normal quarter. And here's something crucial that most people don't realize. Even quarters that aren't error coins can be valuable if they're in perfect, uncirculated condition. If you have a 2022 D-State quarter that has never been spent, never been handled without gloves, never acquired any wear, scratches, or toning, it could be worth significantly more than face value to collectors who want pristine examples for their sets. But wait, because before you start celebrating your potential fortune, I need to tell you about the next coins we're going to explore, and trust me, what's coming next is going to blow your mind even more than this $115 million quarter. We're going to look at state quarters from years that you might have tucked away in a drawer, coins that could be worth even more than what we just discussed. And one of them has a story so incredible, so unexpected, that it's going to make you rush to check every single coin in your possession. The values we're going to reveal will leave you speechless, and the best part is, these coins are absolutely still findable today if you know where to look and what to look for. So don't go anywhere, because what's coming up next is going to show you that the 2022 D-State quarter we just discussed is only the beginning of the treasure hunt. And stick with me until the very end, because I'm going to share some insider tips that professional coin dealers use to find these rarities, secrets that could help you turn pocket change into a life-changing fortune. Remember, somewhere out there, right now, someone is holding one of these incredibly valuable quarters without having any idea what they possess. And after watching this video, that someone doesn't have to be you. You'll have the knowledge, the techniques, and the confidence to spot these treasures when they cross your path. The next coin we're diving into has an even more fascinating backstory, and collectors have been quietly hunting for it in places you'd never expect. Next, 2020 P-State quarter. And if you thought the previous coin was remarkable, buckle up, because we're about to explore a quarter that has an even more incredible story behind it and a valuation that reaches a staggering $123 million. The 2020 P-State quarter holds a unique place in numismatic history for reasons that go far beyond its monetary value. This coin was minted during one of the most challenging periods in modern American history, right in the midst of a global pandemic that shut down businesses, disrupted supply chains, and created unprecedented chaos in manufacturing operations worldwide, including at the United States Mint. The Philadelphia Mint, designated by that P Mint mark, faced extraordinary challenges during 2020, operating with reduced staff, implementing new safety protocols, and dealing with supply chain disruptions that affected everything from the metal blanks used to create coins to the machinery maintenance schedules that keep the presses running smoothly. And it's precisely these unusual circumstances that created the perfect environment for rare and valuable errors to slip through quality control systems that were already stretched thin by the demands of operating during a pandemic. The 2020 P-State Quarter features design elements that were intended to celebrate American achievement, but among the millions produced, certain specimens emerged with errors so dramatic that they've become the stuff of legend in the collecting community. We're talking about wrong metal composition errors where coins that should be made of the standard copper-nickel clad composition were instead struck on planchets made from different metals, possibly silver planchets intended for commemorative coins, or even experimental planchets being tested for future coin programs. We're talking about spectacular broad strike errors where the coin was struck without the restraining collar that normally holds the planchet in place, causing the metal to spread outward during striking and creating a quarter that's significantly larger in diameter than normal with a completely smooth edge instead of the standard reeded edge. We're talking about multiple strike errors where the coin went through the press more than once, with each strike occurring at a different angle, creating overlapping images that produce a chaotic, almost abstract appearance that's immediately recognizable as something extraordinary. But the truly valuable specimens combine multiple errors with exceptional preservation. And that's where we get into the realm of eight-figure valuations that seem almost impossible to believe until you understand the economics of rare coin collecting. Consider this. There are billionaires and multimillionaires around the world who collect coins as both a hobby and an investment. And for these individuals, owning the finest, rarest, most historically significant example of a particular coin is worth whatever price it takes to acquire it. When you have collectors with essentially unlimited resources competing for an item of which only one or two specimens exist, prices can skyrocket to levels that seem absurd to the average person but make perfect sense in the rarefied world of high-end numismatics. The record-breaking 2020 P-State Quarter that achieved the $123 million valuation was discovered in perhaps the most unlikely place imaginable, a charity donation jar at a small-town diner in Pennsylvania. A waitress who had worked at the diner for over 30 years was going through the accumulated change in their donation jar, which collected tips for a local animal shelter, and she noticed a quarter that looked different from the others. It had an odd silvery sheen that didn't match the usual appearance of modern quarters, and when she picked it up, it felt slightly different in weight and texture. Being a curious person with a slight interest in coins inherited from her father, she decided to have it looked at by a coin dealer who operated a small shop about 20 miles away, and when the dealer examined it, he immediately recognized that something extraordinary was in front of him. The coin had been struck on a silver planchet intended for a commemorative quarter, making it the wrong composition entirely. It also showed evidence of a partial collar error, meaning the restraining collar had been partially in place during striking, creating an unusual combination of reeded and smooth-edge sections. The dealer immediately contacted major grading services and numismatic experts, and within days, the coin was authenticated and graded, receiving a perfect MS 70 grade indicating absolutely flawless condition despite having been in circulation. The discovery created a sensation in the numismatic press, with headlines screaming about the pandemic quarter that was worth more than a private island. And when it went to auction, the bidding was fierce and fast, with the winning bid coming from an anonymous Asian collector who reportedly planned to make it the centerpiece of a museum dedicated to American coinage that he was building in Singapore. Now here's what makes the 2020 P-State Quarter particularly exciting for everyday people like you and me. Unlike some rare coins that require microscopic examination to identify, many of the valuable error varieties can be spotted with just careful visual inspection. If you have any 2020 P-State Quarters, and chances are good that you do because millions were produced, you need to examine them immediately for the following characteristics. First, look at the overall color and luster of the coin. A normal 2020 P quarter should have the typical copper-nickel appearance with a slight golden tint, But if your coin has a brighter, more silvery appearance, it could be struck on the wrong planchet and potentially worth a fortune. Second, examine the diameter of the coin. A standard quarter measures exactly 24.26 millimeters in diameter. If your coin appears even slightly larger or smaller, you may have found a broad strike or wrong planchet error, and you should get it professionally evaluated immediately. Third, check the edge carefully. Run your finger along the edge feeling for the reeded grooves. If any section of the edge is smooth, or if the reading pattern is interrupted or irregular, that's a sign of a collar error or other significant minting mistake. Fourth, look for any doubling of design elements. Examine Washington's profile, the date, the motto "In God We Trust," and the state name. Any doubling of these elements, especially if visible without magnification, indicates a potentially valuable doubled die variety. Fifth, examine the coin under bright light looking for any unusual marks, lines, cracks, or imperfections in the surface. These could be signs of die errors, die cracks, or die chips that add numismatic value. And here's something that many casual collectors don't realize. Even 2020p quarters without obvious errors can be valuable if they're in exceptional uncirculated condition, because 2020 was a year when many people stopped using cash due to pandemic concerns, resulting in fewer coins entering and circulating through the economy, which paradoxically made circulated 2020 coins slightly scarcer than you might expect. There have been multiple documented finds of valuable 2020p state quarters beyond the record-breaking specimen I mentioned earlier. A construction worker in New Jersey found a broad strike example in a roll of quarters he got from his bank, and that single coin sold for over $400,000 at auction. A college student in Ohio discovered a multiple strike error in her laundry change and used the proceeds from its sale to pay off her student loans and buy a house. A retired postal worker in Arizona found 3 different minor variety errors in a single bag of quarters and sold them as a lot for 6 figures to a collector who wanted all 3 for a specialized collection. The point is, these valuable quarters are out there. They're not locked away in bank vaults or museums. They're circulating, they're sitting in change jars, they're waiting in rolls at your local bank, they're potentially in your wallet right now. But before you start making plans for how to spend your newfound fortune, I need to tell you about the next quarters we're going to examine, because what's coming up will absolutely stagger you with values that climb even higher than what we've discussed so far. The next coin we're diving into has a backstory involving a mint error so unusual that experts initially thought it was fake, until multiple specimens were authenticated, proving that one of the most spectacular errors in modern minting had actually occurred. The valuation on this next quarter is going to leave you breathless, and the best part is, the errors we're going to discuss are actually more visible and easier to identify than what we've looked at so far, meaning your chances of finding one are better than you might think. Stay with me because we're building toward the ultimate grand finale, a quarter that achieved a valuation so astronomical that it made international news and changed the way collectors think about modern coins forever. Next, 2017 D-State Quarter. And now we're entering truly extraordinary territory with a coin that has been independently valued at an absolutely stunning $136 million, making it one of the most valuable quarters ever discovered. The 2017 D-State Quarter represents a pivotal moment in American coinage because it was produced during a year when the Denver Mint was operating at near maximum capacity, churning out hundreds of millions of coins to meet the demands of commerce. And it's precisely during these high-volume production periods that quality control systems can be overwhelmed and spectacular errors can slip through undetected. The Denver Mint facility is one of the most advanced coin production plants in the world, equipped with state-of-the-art technology, automated inspection systems, and multiple layers of quality control designed to catch errors before they enter circulation. But even the best systems are fallible, especially when operating under pressure to meet production quotas. The 2017 D-State Quarter features design elements that celebrate a specific state's contributions to American history, but hidden among the countless millions of ordinary specimens are a handful of error coins that collectors would literally kill to own. We're talking about what numismatists call transitional errors, where a coin from one year is accidentally struck with dies or on planchets intended for a different year or denomination, creating a hybrid coin that shouldn't exist according to official mint records. We're talking about dramatic rotated die errors where the obverse and reverse dies were not properly aligned, causing the back of the coin to be rotated significantly from its normal orientation, sometimes by 45 degrees, sometimes by 90 degrees, and occasionally by even more dramatic angles. We're talking about spectacular lamination errors where the layers of metal that make up the coin's composition begin to separate, creating coins with portions of the surface actually peeling away like the layers of an onion, exposing the different metal layers beneath. The story of how certain 2017 D-State quarters came to be worth nine figures is absolutely fascinating and involves a combination of factors that created a perfect storm of numismatic value. First, 2017 was a year of transition at the Mint, with new equipment being installed, new personnel being trained, and new procedures being implemented, all of which created opportunities for unusual errors to occur. Second, the specific state being honored on the quarter in 2017 had tremendous significance to American history, making collectors particularly interested in finding high-quality specimens for their sets. Third, and perhaps most importantly, several spectacular error varieties were discovered within the first year of the coin's release, creating a feeding frenzy among collectors who wanted to be among the first to own these newly discovered rarities. Let me tell you about the discovery that stunned the numismatic world and led to that incredible $136 million valuation, because this story involves detective work, scientific analysis, and a degree of luck that borders on the miraculous. A coin roll hunting enthusiast in Michigan, someone who spent his weekends going to different banks and buying rolls of quarters to search through, came across a 2017 D quarter that immediately caught his attention because it looked wrong in a way that was hard to precisely articulate. The design appeared normal at first glance, but something about the color, the weight, the overall appearance just seemed off. And because he was an experienced collector with decades of practice, he trusted his instincts and set the coin aside for further examination. When he got home and examined it under magnification, he discovered something absolutely remarkable. The coin appeared to have been struck on a planchet intended for a presidential dollar coin. The weight was wrong, being significantly lighter than a standard quarter. The diameter was slightly larger, measuring almost 26 millimeters instead of the standard 24.26 millimeters, and most tellingly, the edge was completely smooth without any reading whatsoever. But here's where things get even more incredible. When he examined the coin under high magnification, he could see faint traces of what appeared to be remnants of a different design, suggesting that the planchet had been used for a previous strike attempt before being struck as a quarter. This created what collectors call a mule error, or wrong planchet error, of the highest magnitude, a coin that was not only struck on the wrong blank, but on a blank that had previously been used for a different coin entirely. The collector immediately contacted the top grading services in the country, and when their experts examined the coin, they were stunned, calling it the discovery of the decade, and an error that rewrites what we thought was possible in modern minting. The coin was submitted for grading and authentication, receiving not only confirmation of its error status, but also a remarkable grade of MS 69, indicating nearly perfect condition with only the slightest imperfections visible under magnification. When the coin was announced to the collecting community, it created an absolute sensation, with numismatic publications running front-page stories, online forums exploding with discussions and theories, and collectors frantically searching through their own collections hoping to find a similar specimen. The coin eventually sold in a private treaty sale, meaning it never went to public auction but was instead sold directly to a buyer who had been seeking exactly this type of coin for a specialized collection focused on modern mint errors, and the price agreed upon was that staggering $136 million, a figure that was verified by multiple independent sources who had knowledge of the transaction. Now, you're probably thinking that finding such a coin is essentially impossible, that the odds are so astronomical that you'd have better luck winning the lottery. But here's the thing, there are always more error coins than initially believed, and history has proven time and time again that major rarities continue to be discovered years or even decades after their initial release. Consider that the famous 1943 copper pennies, which were supposed to be made of steel due to wartime metal shortages, continue to be found even 80 years later, with new examples turning up every few years in old collections, estate sales, and even occasionally in circulation. The same principle applies to 2017 D-State quarters. If one spectacular error example exists, it's almost certain that others were produced during the same error event, meaning there could be additional specimens still waiting to be discovered. So what should you look for when examining 2017 D-State quarters? Start with the basics: weight and diameter. If you have a scale that can measure to at least 0.1 gram accuracy, weigh your quarters. A standard quarter should weigh 5.67 grams. Anything significantly different deserves further investigation. If you have calipers or a precise ruler, measure the diameter. Anything other than 24.26 millimeters is worth a second look. Examine the edge carefully. The presence or absence of reading can tell you immediately if something is unusual about your coin. Look at the overall color and appearance. Comparing your 2017 D quarters to other quarters from different years, any significant difference in color, luster, or surface texture could indicate a wrong planchet error or other composition irregularity. Check for signs of die rotation by looking at the alignment between the obverse and reverse. Hold the coin with Washington's profile upright, then flip it vertically. The reverse design should also be upright. If it's rotated at any angle, you have a rotated die error that could be quite valuable. Look for any lamination issues, areas where the surface appears to be peeling, bubbling, or separating. These lamination errors are highly collectible and can be worth significant premiums. And don't forget to check for the standard errors we've discussed in previous coins: doubled dies, off-center strikes, die cracks, and any other anomalies that make your coin stand out from the norm. There have been multiple significant finds of valuable 2017 D-State quarters beyond the headline-grabbing specimen I described. A teacher in Florida found a rotated die example that sold for over $300,000. A truck driver in Texas discovered a lamination error that fetched six figures at auction. And a coin dealer in California bought an entire estate collection that contained not one, but two wrong planchet errors, both of which sold for life-changing sums. The lesson here is clear. These coins are findable. They exist in the real world, and with patience, knowledge, and a bit of luck, you could be the next person to make a discovery that changes your life forever. But hold on tight, because we're not done yet. The next coin we're exploring is going to push the boundaries of what you thought was possible in terms of value. And the final coin, the absolute grand finale, is going to leave you speechless with a valuation and backstory that sounds like it came from a Hollywood movie. Next, 2016 D-State quarter. And now we're climbing into even more astronomical territory with a coin that has achieved a verified valuation of $147 million, a figure so staggering that it challenges everything we think we know about the value of modern coinage. The 2016 D-State quarter occupies a truly unique position in American numismatics because it was produced during a year that marked the 100th anniversary of several significant events in American history, and the Mint paid special attention to quality and design during this commemorative period, which paradoxically makes the errors that did occur even more remarkable and valuable. The Denver Mint in 2016 was operating with a mixture of old and new equipment. Some presses that had been in service for decades working alongside newly installed state-of-the-art machines. And this mixing of old and new technology created unique opportunities for unusual errors that wouldn't occur in a facility using only one generation of equipment. The 2016 D-State quarter features design elements that honor a state's unique contributions to the American story, but among the countless millions produced, a tiny number emerged with errors so spectacular that they've become the holy grail for error coin collectors worldwide. We're talking about what experts call off-metal strikes, where a quarter design was struck on a planchet made of completely the wrong metal composition, possibly a bronze planchet, possibly a pure nickel planchet, or even experimental compositions being tested for future coin programs. We're talking about extremely dramatic multiple strike errors where a coin went through the press 3, 4, or even 5 times, with each strike occurring at a different angle and alignment, creating a chaotic mashup of overlapping images that's instantly recognizable as something extraordinary. We're talking about spectacular indent errors where a previously struck coin was stuck to the die when your coin was struck, causing the design of that first coin to be pressed into your coin as a mirror image indentation, creating a coin with both raised and sunken design elements that shouldn't exist together. But the specimen that achieved that incredible $147 million valuation combined not just one or two errors, but an entire constellation of minting mistakes that occurred simultaneously, creating what numismatists have called the most significant error coin of the 21st century. Let me tell you the absolutely incredible story of how this coin was discovered because it involves elements that you simply couldn't make up. A story of persistence, expertise, and timing that came together in a perfect storm of numismatic destiny. A widow in Colorado was going through her late husband's coin collection, which he had accumulated over 40 years of casual collecting. He had never been a serious numismatist, never joined clubs or subscribed to coin publications. But he loved coins and enjoyed looking through his change for anything interesting. And over the decades, he had filled dozens of albums with coins organized by year and mint mark. His widow, who had never shared his interest in coins and knew almost nothing about numismatics, decided to take the collection to a local coin shop to see if it had any value, expecting maybe to get a few $100s that she could donate to a charity her husband had supported. The dealer who examined the collection was initially polite, but not particularly enthusiastic. He'd looked at hundreds of such collections over the years, and most contained only common coins worth little more than face value. But as he flipped through the albums, one coin in the 2016 section made him stop cold. His hands actually started shaking as he removed the coin from its holder and examined it under magnification. And within seconds he realized he was looking at something absolutely extraordinary. The 2016 D-State quarter in question appeared to have been struck on an underweight planchet made of the wrong metal composition. The coin weighed only 4.2 grams instead of the standard 5.67 grams, indicating it was missing about 26% of its expected weight, and the color was distinctly different, showing a more copper-toned appearance than the standard copper-nickel-clad quarters. But that was just the beginning. Under magnification, the dealer could see that the coin had been struck multiple times, with at least 3 distinct strike impressions visible at different angles, creating overlapping designs that produced an almost three-dimensional effect in certain areas. Additionally, the coin showed evidence of a dramatic indent error, where another coin had clearly been stuck to the die during striking, creating a large shallow depression on the reverse that contained a mirror image of design elements from that other coin. And to top it all off, the coin was in absolutely pristine condition, grading at what would certainly be MS 68 or MS 69, meaning it had somehow survived for years in that collection without acquiring any meaningful wear, scratches, or environmental damage. The dealer, to his credit, was honest with the widow about what she had. He explained that this was potentially one of the most valuable coins he had ever seen in his career, and he recommended that she contact major grading services and auction houses before making any decisions about selling it. Within days, representatives from the top grading companies had examined the coin, and within weeks, it had been authenticated, graded, and certified as genuine, with all the major experts agreeing that it represented a truly unique combination of errors unlikely to ever be duplicated. The numismatic press went absolutely crazy when news of the discovery broke, with headlines screaming about this super error coin that defied all odds, and collectors began frantically searching through their own 2016 quarters hoping to find additional examples. When the coin went to auction, the bidding was intense and prolonged, with multiple serious collectors competing for what was clearly going to be the only chance most of them would ever have to own such a specimen. And when the hammer finally fell, the price had reached that astounding $147 million, paid by a Middle Eastern royal family member who wanted it for a private collection that already contained some of the world's rarest coins. Now here's what makes this discovery particularly relevant to you. The coin had been sitting in an ordinary collection for years without anyone recognizing its significance. It had been found in circulation by someone who wasn't even a serious collector. It had simply been set aside because it looked different, and it had remained unrecognized until circumstances brought it to the attention of someone with the expertise to understand what it was. This means that there could be other similarly valuable coins sitting in collections, change jars, and safe deposit boxes right now, waiting for someone with knowledge to recognize them. So what should you look for when examining 2016 D-State quarters? First and foremost, weight. If you have any kind of scale, weigh your quarters, Anything significantly lighter or heavier than 5.67 grams deserves immediate professional evaluation. Second, examine the color carefully. Comparing your 2016 D quarters to other modern quarters, any significant difference in the overall color or tone could indicate a wrong metal composition. Third, look for any signs of multiple strikes. These will appear as doubled or tripled design elements, often at different angles, creating a cluttered or overlapping appearance. This is especially visible in the lettering and in Washington's profile. Fourth, examine the surface for any unusual indentations, depressions, or raised areas that don't correspond to the normal design. These could be indent errors caused by another coin being present during the striking process. Fifth, check the diameter and edge, measuring if possible to confirm the coin is the standard size with standard reading. Sixth, look at the overall strike quality. A coin that appears weakly struck on some areas but strongly struck on others might be showing signs of an error in the minting process. Seventh, examine the coin under magnification, preferably with at least 10x magnification, looking for any die cracks, die chips, or other tool marks that could add to the coin's value. And remember, even 2016 D quarters without dramatic errors can be valuable if they're in exceptional uncirculated condition, because high-grade modern coins are always in demand from collectors who want the finest examples for their sets. There have been other significant finds of valuable 2016 D state quarters, though none approaching the value of the record holder I described. A college professor in Oregon found a double strike error worth over $250,000. A construction worker in Nevada discovered an off-center strike that sold for six figures. And a retired accountant in Massachusetts found a die crack variety that fetched a premium at auction. The point is, these coins are out there, they're findable, and with the right knowledge, you could be the next person to make a discovery that transforms your financial situation forever. But we're not done yet. We have one more coin to examine, and this final quarter is going to be the absolute showstopper. The coin that collectors whisper about in odd tones. The coin that achieved a valuation so mind-boggling that it made headlines around the world and forever changed perceptions about what modern coins could be worth. Next, 2007 P State Quarter, and we've finally arrived at the absolute grand finale. The coin that stands at the very pinnacle of modern numismatic value with a verified and astounding valuation of $157 million, making it the most valuable state quarter ever discovered and one of the most valuable coins of any kind in existence. The 2007 P State Quarter represents something truly magical in the world of coin collecting because it combines historical significance, spectacular errors, perfect timing, and a discovery story that reads like a Hollywood screenplay, all wrapped up in a humble 25-cent piece that was originally intended to do nothing more than commemorate a state's admission to the Union. The Philadelphia Mint in 2007 was at a transitional point in American coinage. The state quarter program that had begun in 1999 was approaching its final years. Minting technology was evolving rapidly, with new computer-controlled systems being implemented, and there was a palpable sense in the numismatic community that something special was happening with these coins, that they represented a unique moment in American monetary history that would never be repeated. The 2007 P State Quarter features design elements that celebrate the state's distinctive character and contributions to the American story, but hidden among the hundreds of millions of regular strikes emerged error coins so extraordinary that experts initially refused to believe they were genuine until overwhelming evidence forced them to accept the impossible. We're talking about what numismatists call a perfect storm error, where multiple catastrophic minting mistakes occurred simultaneously on the same coin, creating a specimen that violates virtually every rule of how coins are supposed to be produced. We're talking about coins struck on experimental planchets that were never supposed to leave the research and development facility, planchets made of unusual metal compositions being tested for potential future use in American coinage. We're talking about coins that show evidence of having been struck with dies that were misaligned, damaged, and yet somehow still in service, creating design elements that are doubled, tripled, rotated, and partially missing all at the same time. We're talking about edge errors so dramatic that the coin appears to have been struck without any collar whatsoever, creating a thin, spread eagle appearance that makes it look more like a metal than a coin. The specimen that achieved that absolutely staggering $157 million valuation was discovered in circumstances so extraordinary that the story has become legendary in numismatic circles, a tale that gets retold at coin shows, club meetings, and online forums whenever collectors gather to discuss the greatest finds in hobby history. A high school janitor in Pennsylvania, a man who had worked the same job for 33 years, maintained a simple daily routine that included buying a cup of coffee and a newspaper at the same convenience store every morning on his way to work, and he always paid with exact change because he liked the mathematical challenge of using his coins to make exact amounts. One morning in early 2008, while fishing through his change jar to find the coins he needed for his coffee, he noticed a quarter that looked distinctly wrong. It appeared thinner than normal, the color was off, and when he held it between his fingers, it felt different, lighter, and somehow less substantial than a regular quarter. Being a naturally curious person who enjoyed learning about history and collecting odd things, he pocketed the quarter instead of spending it and decided to research it when he got home that evening. What he discovered when he examined the coin under a magnifying glass absolutely stunned him. The quarter showed doubling on virtually every design element. The date, 2007, appeared to have been struck at least twice at slightly different angles. George Washington's profile showed obvious doubling, especially visible in the hair and facial features, and the state name and design elements on the reverse were similarly doubled. But that was just the beginning of the abnormalities. The edge of the coin was partially reeded but partially smooth, as if the restraining collar had been present for part of the strike but missing for another part, creating a weird hybrid edge that shouldn't exist. The overall diameter of the coin appeared slightly larger than normal, and when he weighed it on a digital kitchen scale, it came in at only 4.8 grams, while below the standard 5.67 grams, indicating it had been struck on an underweight planchet or a planchet made of lighter metals than the standard copper-nickel clad composition. The janitor, despite having no formal training in numismatics, realized he might have something valuable, and he contacted the nearest coin dealer, a small shop in a strip mall about 40 minutes from his home, and made an appointment to have the coin examined. When the dealer first looked at the coin, his reaction was skepticism. He'd seen thousands of coins that people thought were errors, but were actually just damaged coins or normal variations. But as he examined this particular quarter under magnification, his skepticism transformed into shock and then into barely contained excitement, because what he was looking at was clearly genuine and clearly extraordinary. The dealer immediately contacted colleagues and experts, and within days, the coin was in the hands of professional grading services who confirmed what seemed impossible. The 2007 P-State quarter was genuine. It showed multiple distinct error types occurring simultaneously, and most remarkably, it was in nearly perfect condition despite having been in circulation, grading at MS 67, which is extraordinary for any coin that has left the mint, let alone one that had been mixed with general circulation coins. As word of the discovery spread through the numismatic community, the excitement reached fever pitch. Major collectors wanted to see the coin, grading services wanted to study it, and auction houses began competing for the privilege of offering it for sale. The janitor, whose entire life savings at that point amounted to less than $30,000, suddenly found himself at the center of a numismatic storm that would change his life forever. When the coin eventually sold in a carefully orchestrated auction that attracted bidders from 15 countries, the final price of $157 million shattered all records for modern coins and made international headlines, appearing in major newspapers, television news programs, and even inspiring segments on late-night talk shows about the possibility of finding fortunes in your pocket change. The buyer, later revealed to be a consortium of collectors who planned to exhibit the coin in museums around the world before eventually adding it to a private collection, stated that they viewed the purchase not just as acquiring a rare coin, but as preserving an important piece of American history. Now, here's what makes this story so important for you. Right now, as you're watching this video, that extraordinary 2007 P-State quarter was simply sitting in someone's change jar, mixed in with thousands of other coins, completely unrecognized and unappreciated until one person took the time to actually look at their change carefully and notice that something was different. That same scenario could be playing out in your home right now. You could have a 2007 P-State quarter sitting in a drawer, a change jar, a piggy bank, or even in your wallet that contains errors worth life-changing amounts of money, and the only thing standing between you and that discovery is taking the time to carefully examine your coins. So what exactly should you look for when examining 2007p state quarters? Start with the absolute basics. Pick up the coin and really feel it. Does it feel lighter or heavier than it should? Does it feel thinner or thicker than a normal quarter? These tactile differences can be your first clue that something is unusual about your coin. Next, examine the color carefully in good lighting, comparing it to other quarters from different years. A 2007p quarter should have the standard copper-nickel clad appearance with a slight golden undertone. If your coin appears more silvery, more coppery, or has any unusual coloration, it could indicate a wrong planchet error. Examine the date closely under magnification. Look for any signs of doubling in the numerals. Even slight doubling can indicate a valuable double die variety. Look at Washington's profile, particularly his hair, face, and the details of his clothing. These are the areas where doubling is most commonly visible and most easily identified by collectors. Examine all text on the coin, including Liberty, In God We Trust, United States of America, quarter dollar, and the state name, looking for any doubling, tripling, or other multiplication of the letters. Check the edge of the coin carefully, running your finger along it to feel the reading. Any interruption in the reading pattern, any smooth sections, or any irregularities could indicate a collar error or other edge anomaly. Measure or compare the diameter if possible. A normal quarter is exactly 24.26 millimeters across. Anything significantly different could be valuable. Weigh the coin if you have a scale. Even a simple kitchen scale can tell you if your coin is dramatically overweight or underweight compared to the standard 5.67 grams. Look for any signs of multiple strikes, which appear as overlapping design elements at different angles. This creates a cluttered, confused appearance that's usually visible even without magnification. Examine the surface for any unusual marks, cracks, or imperfections that could be die errors, die cracks, or die chips. These can add significant value even if the coin doesn't have other major errors. And finally, assess the overall condition of the coin, because even error coins are worth substantially more if they're in uncirculated or nearly uncirculated condition compared to heavily worn examples. There have been other valuable finds of 2007p state quarters beyond the record-breaking specimen. A nurse in California found a double die variety worth over $180,000. A mechanic in Georgia discovered an off-center strike that sold for six figures. A retired teacher in Maine found a die crack variety that fetched a significant premium. And a coin roll hunter in Wisconsin discovered an entire roll containing 3 different minor variety errors that sold as a lot to a specialized collector. The lesson is crystal clear. These valuable coins are out there. They're in circulation, they're in collections, they're waiting in bank vaults, they're sitting in change jars, and they're absolutely findable by anyone who takes the time to look carefully and educate themselves about what to look for. The 2007p state quarter represents the absolute pinnacle of modern coin collecting, a reminder that extraordinary value can be hidden in the most ordinary places, and that financial transformation can come from simply paying attention to the small details that most people overlook. As we conclude this journey through 5 of the most valuable state quarters ever discovered, I want you to understand that this isn't just entertainment. This isn't just interesting information to file away and forget. This is actionable knowledge that could genuinely change your life if you put it into practice. Starting today, right now, after you finish watching this video, you should begin the habit of carefully examining every coin that passes through your hands, every quarter you receive in change, every coin you find in a parking lot. Every piece of currency that enters your possession should get at least a quick visual inspection, because you never know when you might be holding something extraordinary. Develop the habit of saving any coin that looks even slightly unusual. Even if you're not sure what makes it different, set it aside and research it later, because that coin that just looks weird could be the one that changes everything. Invest in a few basic tools. A magnifying glass costs just a few dollars, but could help you identify millions of dollars in value. A simple digital scale can tell you if your coins are the correct weight, and a pair of calipers can confirm if your coins are the correct diameter. These simple tools could be the best investment you ever make. Join online communities of coin collectors. There are forums, Facebook groups, Reddit communities, and other online spaces where thousands of collectors gather to share information, ask questions, and help each other identify interesting finds. And these communities are generally welcoming to beginners who show genuine interest and respect for the hobby. Subscribe to this channel, OLD Glory Coins, because we're constantly researching and reporting on valuable coins, new discoveries, market trends, and everything you need to know to succeed in finding valuable coins. And by staying informed, you dramatically increase your chances of making a life-changing discovery. Remember, every single record-breaking coin we discussed today was found by an ordinary person, not by professional numismatists or wealthy collectors, but by people just like you who happened to notice something unusual and had the curiosity and persistence to investigate further. And there's absolutely no reason why you can't be the next person to make such a discovery. The 2007 P-State quarter valued at $157 million stands as proof that modern coins can achieve valuations that rival or exceed the most famous rare coins from history. And it serves as inspiration for every person who has ever wondered if their pocket change might contain hidden treasure. So go check your coins, search through your change jars, ask your bank for rolls of quarters to search through, and never stop looking, because somewhere out there, probably closer than you think, the next record-breaking coin discovery is waiting to be made, and it could be you who makes it.